Kill in silence and slaughter calmly. Betray the police and stab the judiciary. Unite the mafia, but first get rid of the chatterboxes. And always remember to see America through the eyes of the Italians. This phrase belonged to the Constitution's most famous mafia boss in the United States, the guy who fooled the police for 30 years and convinced everyone he was a crazy street wanderer. But in reality, he was a source of terror for everyone. The mafia feared him before the police did, because he had connections everywhere, in every field. He was the owner of the clean mafia, or honorable mafia theory, which transformed the mafia from a closed secret organization into a vital artery that revitalized all of America. He managed to infiltrate every joint of the economy and the state. But despite that, no one broke him or destroyed him except his own son. The one who's watching us for the first time, we're the Did You Know channel, and we talk about everything unknown, strange, and mysterious. Today, we're talking about the godfather of the mafia and the spiritual father of all the crimes that happened in America. The guy who became the leader of the entire Italian Mafia, broke all its laws, and invented a new policy that revived the Mafia in all its corners. And he did all this while pretending to be crazy, with a paper from the American judiciary saying he's mentally disturbed and not aware. The people who saw him and witnessed his behavior confirmed this. But there was a secret no one expected or imagined. When it was revealed, everything collapsed. This secret was tied to his eldest son. Before we start today's episode, I want everyone watching me for the first time to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. No one forgets the like, and as usual, let's discuss in the comments and share our opinions. Before we talk about today's hero, you need to know some details about the Italian Mafia in America. The United States, and as everyone knows, the economy rules it. It's impossible for a poor person to rule the United States. The final word in any case always goes to the companies and giant banks. More than one war the United States fought had the economy as the main reason, from World War I to its current economic war with China. So any financial entity in the United States must have a political arm. Who? Like the Italian Mafia. Is this talk reasonable? Yes, it's reasonable. The Italian Mafia has insane investments in properties in the United States. To keep their affairs smooth and no one touches them, and their lives always going well, they have an army of lawyers. And when we say army, we're not exaggerating at all. They have lawyers in every state and every city, numbering in the hundreds. Of course, these lawyers' job is to provide legal cover for any shady operation the mafia does, and at the same time defend them if the American government brings any charges against them. So the American administration knows them one by one and knows the nature of their shady businesses, but they have no problem with them. On the contrary, there are cooperations between them, like shady deals done through the mafia, not the state, and other things we're not going to talk about. Also, don't forget they're a massive financial force. That's why no one gets close to them. On the contrary, officials always want their approval, and they have followers and people working with them in every official institution, like representatives in Congress, the Senate, and even news agencies. That's why they're a very strong and huge entity.
Side note you might find very strange but true, confirmed by dozens of newspapers. To show the power and influence of the mafia today, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni was seeking to normalize relations with Bashar al-Assad in recent weeks before he fell. She tried to convince the European Union of this in more than one meeting, emphasizing the need to bring Assad's government back to the map, for Russia not to monopolize Syria, and for the refugee file. But her proposal wasn't based on any concrete evidence. Later reports showed that the Italian Mafia pressured the Italian government, and they asked Meloni's government to normalize relations with Assad for two main reasons. The first and primary one: in the last 5 years, Assad's regime was the godfather of banned substances worldwide, smuggling huge quantities of banned materials through illegal routes. Over time, smuggling these materials became nearly impossible because of measures taken by countries on its borders. Normalizing relations with Assad's regime was necessary so smuggling could happen directly from Latakia and Tartus ports, direct smuggling to specific ports controlled by the Italian Mafia in Europe. The second reason was at the request of manufacturers, middlemen, and promoters who worked for Assad, like, "We're making these materials for you and smuggling them, so pressure your government to give us international cover." The point of all this is for you to know the size and power of the Italian Mafia. But the problem is that this power relies on a large number of killers, butchers, and banned substance promoters. It's a block of absolute evil. That's why there must be a very strong code ruling them, and rules no one is allowed to break. If broken, the punishment is very fierce, and their fate is one of three things: either immediate killing or torture to death. If the member is important, instead of executing him, they might assassinate one of his family members as a threat and punishment. Wife, father, mother, brother, it doesn't matter. They can burn anyone's heart. To control all this horde of criminals working with them, of course, there are rules we'll encounter in our story. I need to tell you about them first so you understand the danger of what our story's hero did. The Mafia is a group of gangs. They call themselves families, but really they're gangs. They use the term family to soften the word. Each family has a boss, and in the past there were brutal wars between them. That's why they reached an agreement for shared leadership, so their interests don't conflict and problems don't escalate to fighting. They formed a council of gang bosses. One of these bosses becomes president of the entire Italian Mafia, of course by election. So the entire Italian Mafia has one single leader. Also among the rules, the Mafia boss is the only one allowed to assassinate anyone. Anyone. He issues an assassination order and can kill any gang boss, politician, or even state official, and no one can question why he did it. No one can review him. He's the president and knows what's best for everyone. Also, it's strictly forbidden for any reason to change the Mafia boss. He remains responsible for the entire Italian Mafia as long as he's alive, even if he goes to prison. He's still the ultimate authority. It's possible to transfer leadership to another boss if he requests it, and he decides who the new boss after him will be. Not just that, but with a vote on his decision by the other bosses. If they don't agree on the replacement, leadership stays with him until he finds a suitable alternative everyone agrees on and gives him the powers.
Imagine if one of the bosses, two or even all, decide to assassinate the Italian Mafia president. They'd be immediately isolated, liquidated, and new bosses appointed in their place. This law is like protection for everyone because any one of them knows he can become boss in only one case: changing the big boss through a meeting attended by all gang bosses, voting and electing a replacement, and smoothly transferring leadership. If the big boss opposes it, they discuss with him and convince him until he agrees, and it happens smoothly. Their principle: crime between us is forbidden. With this law, they prevent assassinations and liquidations among themselves. All these laws, despite their importance, Vincent Gigante broke them and did everything that came to his dangerous mind. But in New York City, specifically in Manhattan, in the street of Italian immigrants, Vincent Luis Gigante was born on March 28, 1928. The street Vincent was born on was known for criminal activities. All residents were Italian immigrants, most affiliated with the Mafia, to the point that American police passed by this street only once a week. Gangs controlled the entire place. They were the criminals and the law at the same time. The problem Vincent faced in childhood was growing up in a street full of mafiosi. The biggest challenge any family in this neighborhood faced was their son not joining the Mafia. Because back then, the measure of manhood was, are you Mafia or not? If you're with them, you're a real man. Everyone fears and respects you. But if you're normal and away from the crime swamp, your manhood is questioned. So for any mother or father, the challenge was how to raise their son clean, how to keep their son from following these gangs that had everything in return. Any honest person in that neighborhood had nothing. The biggest challenge came when Vincent was 5 years old. His father died, and the burden fell entirely on his mother. His mother rose to the responsibility, but unfortunately only temporarily. When Vincent turned 14, everything changed. Vincent, like any child and teen living in that neighborhood, had a tendency toward life and a decent, purified life. Unfortunately, the only successful model in front of him was the gangmen who had everything. So he went to the places where they gathered, sat with them, and watched from afar. He mixed with them, and honestly they were kind to him because his mother and father were Italian in a foreign country, so they had to be one hand. By the way, this is one of the Mafia's slogans: do whatever you want, but don't bother or upset an Italian. On top of that, Vincent had two qualities that made all the gangmen admire him: his intelligence and strong build. Imagine a 14-year-old boy always hearing, "One day you'll be like the Mafia." Imagine how the image of success formed in his mind. But the question, how did they discover his intelligence? Vincent went to bars where Mafia men were. There were small gambling rooms with group games like roulette and blackjack. He had an incredible memory and learned very quickly. Sometimes he played with them and won money from them. One time, one of them offered him a job in a hall they owned, but in another neighborhood. The boy immediately agreed. He transformed from a clever, smart kid who loves playing these games into an organizer of the games. As for his height and looks, he was bigger than his age. He fooled everyone into thinking he was 18, not 15.
He asked them more than once to give him a mission and join them officially, but circumstances didn't allow it. To prove he was capable of any mission, he decided to learn boxing. That's when something unexpected happened in his life. From the moment Vincent started boxing training, he committed to the gym more than anywhere else. Not only that, he quit his job and stopped going to Mafia bars. He fully committed to the sport and started participating in local tournaments, winning by knockout. When he applied for professional boxing, his request was rejected because he was under 18. So he decided to enter professional boxing using his older brother's ID, who was 20. In 1944, Vincent entered the pro world at age 16, and over 3 years he had 25 fights, winning 21, 18 by knockout. After his dream was to be a Mafia member, it became his goal to win the World Professional Championship. Importantly, he completely distanced himself from the Mafia atmosphere. Not only that, he got a house in another neighborhood far from all their filth. He and his family moved there, and he decided to continue his path toward his dream away from the Mafia world. But it wasn't that simple at all. In 1947, Vincent was in the boxing gym training when 3 men in suits entered. It was obvious they were Mafia. The 3 went to Vincent and politely said, "Finish your workout and come talk to us." They sat aside watching him train. Everyone in the gym was scared of them, but Vincent finished his workout normally. He knew them from the bars he used to go to. After finishing, he went out with them. They sat in the car and said, "You always ask to join us, and the opportunity has come. You have a small mission to execute." At first, Vincent refused, saying, "I want a clean life." They said, "You'll never make as much monthly from boxing." When he told them, the 3 laughed and said, "For executing this mission, we'll give you a reward equal to everything you've earned in your life from this game." Strangely, Vincent still refused. Since he didn't accept the carrot, he'd accept the stick. They said, "You're free to do what you want, but usually those who refuse such an offer have a sudden accident by chance. This accident either takes his life or the life of someone he loves, like his mother, or causes a permanent injury preventing boxing. So, you're free." At that point, he had no choice but to take the mission. The mission was to beat and threaten an ordinary person who owned a small restaurant in one of the poor neighborhoods. Even Vincent was surprised by the pay for such a simple mission. Here's something you need to know. The Mafia wasn't incapable of this mission at all. Anyone working with them could do it, but they wanted Vincent Gigante to join them, and this was his entry. Simple, easy mission with big financial reward. Importantly, Vincent didn't quit boxing and insisted on continuing. Harassment started coming from them, and in every fight he entered, he saw Mafia elements in the audience. One time before a fight, one of them came to him and said, "You need to lose this fight. We bet our money on your loss, and surely you don't want to upset us or make us lose money." And indeed, that fight was his first loss. Vincent lost by knockout. After that, he decided to quit boxing permanently. He had no choice but to continue with the Mafia and become one of them. Vincent thought everything that happened was normal, just the Mafia's way of recruiting new people. But in reality, nothing was normal, because the one who planned everything was a guy named Vito Genovese. To understand what happened to him and who Vito Genovese was, we need to go back to the idea of gang bosses and the big boss ruling everyone at that time. The leader of the entire Italian Mafia was Lucky Luciano. Luciano was the first elected boss of the Italian Mafia, the way I told you. Not only that, he organized the Mafia, divided it into families, and set these laws. This guy was loved by everyone, had no enemies, walked without bodyguards, appeared anywhere as a normal person. No one feared him. He was very organized, solved all problems peacefully without spilling a drop of blood. It's said during his time as boss, the Mafia didn't allow any crime to be fabricated, and gradually, Mafia activity shifted from crime to finance and business. This didn't suit the American government because they left them to do their illegitimate work, but at the same time, it didn't want the Mafia's criminal activities to disappear. If they did, these mafiosi would become uncontrolled cells in society that could return to crime any time without oversight. So they fabricated charges against Luciano and imprisoned him to change him and bring a replacement. After release, he was deported to Italy. But the government didn't know Mafia leadership law. As we said, according to Mafia law, the big boss remains boss until he dies. So even after imprisonment and deportation, he remained the leader. But after returning to Italy, it was necessary to appoint someone to manage things in America in his place. That person was Frank Costello. Costello was a carbon copy of Luciano, no difference in managing the Mafia. Costello's only flaw was he was very arrogant in dealing with people. He was disciplined, smart, wise in decisions, but his arrogance blinded him. Like a mafia boss with thousands of secret elements under his command and 5 bosses, naturally arrogant, unlike the humble Luciano. Here the American government was shocked. Nothing changed. The policy stayed the same. Since the mafia policy remained peaceful and gentle, it was crucial to change its new leader. They tried every way to pin charges on Costello, but he was a genius in every sense, and they couldn't do anything to him. At that time, American intelligence started understanding mafia law more and knew changing the boss was impossible. If they tried to kill him, the streets would burn. There'd be war against them, literal destruction, because the mafia was everywhere. So no solution but to support another person inside the mafia to assassinate him and take his place. Who? One of the gang bosses, Vito Genovese. The reason for supporting this guy specifically, there was an unnatural enmity between him and Costello. He was the best for this mission. Even so, Genovese didn't rush or kill Costello. He tried to convince him legally, but failed. All Genovese's plans didn't work, so he asked his assistants to find him a person with specific qualities. To not drag it out, the qualities he wanted were in Vincent, an Italian, away from the mafia, smart and strong. That's why they chose Vincent. One of the young guys working with Genovese remembered Vincent saying he was great in the gambling hall and terrifying in the ring. They said, "This is who we want." They kept trying with him under Genovese's supervision and instructions until the day came and he became one of them.
Genovese's goal was to send Vincent on one mission only. I want you to kill Costello and disappear. That's why he trained him and had him do missions but without being a full member. But when Costello saw him and got to know him, he liked him and decided to keep him close. Imagine, the plan that brought Vincent was to execute it quickly and join fully, but Genovese canceled the whole idea. He made Vincent his right-hand man in everything. They stayed like that until Vincent was 26. Then a dispute happened between Costello and Genovese. Costello insulted Genovese in front of everyone, putting him in a very ugly position. Then Genovese decided to kill him and chose his right-hand man, Vincent, for the mission. He made one request. If you fail, I have no problem, as long as no one knows who you are. If you're exposed, you'll be killed, you and your whole family. Then neither I nor 100 like me can protect you. To not ruin the family's laws, I have no choice but to sacrifice you to keep the mafia united. I'll kill you myself. The surprise was Vincent failed the mission, and not only that, he was exposed. On May 3rd, 1957, Vincent went to the building with Costello's office. After days of surveillance, he knew at 5 p.m. Costello would leave his office and go home without bodyguards. The guards would wait for him at the car outside. So he entered the building and waited at the elevator door. As soon as Costello opened the elevator door to exit, he was shocked to see Vincent standing in front of him. He fired 4 shots at him, 2 in the shoulder, 2 in the head. The gun Vincent had a silencer, so he exited the building in front of the guards and disappeared immediately. Supposedly, the only one who knew who he was Costello, who was supposed to be dead after 4 shots. But the surprise, none of the 4 bullets penetrated a vital part of his body. Even the headshots, one grazed his ear, one lodged in the skull without brain damage. At that point, Vincent was living his last days and knew even if he fled to another country with his family, they'd find them. But some days later, after leaving the hospital, Costello gathered the 5 gang bosses, and what happened next destroyed everything Vincent thought he knew. Did Costello call the hit? Did Vincent spend the next 30 years in prison? Or did something impossible happen that made Vincent untouchable? Smash that like button if you need to know now. Part 2 drops tomorrow. See ya.